isang formula na pwedeng mag-solve sa value ng x. At yun na lang yung tatandaan ko for solving quadratic equations. Ang sagot sa problema mong yan ay ang lesson natin for today. Our lesson for today will solve all different forms of quadratic equation. You don't need to use factoring, you don't need to use extracting square root, you don't need to use completing the square. Our lesson for today will do all those things in solving quadratic equation in just one formula. At ano yung lesson natin for today? And our lesson for today will be about this formula. And that is what we call the quadratic formula. Hello, are you ready to learn for today? Yes, our lesson for today will be all about solving quadratic equation by quadratic formula. This formula will solve all forms of quadratic equation. All we need to do is to identify the values of a, b, and c from the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. But before that, let's take into consideration simplifying radicals. So how do we really simplify radicals? Okay, to study that, let's start with the list of the perfect squares. So from this, we have the perfect squares. So if you square 1, 1 times 1 or 1 squared will be equal to 1. For example, 6 squared or 6 times 6 will be equal to 36. So this column represents the perfect squares. Those are numbers that is the result from the square of the different numbers from 1 to 10. So from that, we studied about or will study about simplifying radicals. So for example, we have square root of 49. So from the previous videos, we learned how to do square roots. So just undo squaring a number. So for today, we'll just be considering the positive square roots of these values. So if we have 49, we have square root of 49. So getting the square root of 49, that will be equal to 7. So the square root of 49 is equal to 7. Next, as you notice, 120, even if I square 11, that's equal to 121, diba? So 120 is not a perfect square. But our lesson for today is not just getting the roots of a perfect square, but rather simplifying these kinds of radicals. So from the video about completing the square, we've already have this one. We get the square we get the factors of 120. That is, one of these factors will be uh, a perfect square. So for example, let's take, don't consider 1, diba? From the video, sabi the factors of all the numbers are 1 in itself. So let's start with 4. So we can have the square root of 4 times 30. So always consider one of the factors be a perfect square. So we can get this property by getting the square root of both of them. And our answers will now be the square root of 4 is 2. So we'll take it outside the radical sign, and then we'll have 30 inside the radical sign because 30 is not a perfect square. Although we cannot get the actual value of the square root of 120, we can get its simplified form, which is 2 square root of 30. And that's how we simplify radicals, even if we're given with square root of 50. So once again, we'll look for a factor of 50 that is present in these perfect squares. So I think it's not divisible by 4. We cannot have a factor of 50 that is 1 having a factor of 4. 9, it's not possible. 16, it's not possible as well. 25. 25. So I think we can have 25 times 2. That's 50, diba? So from that, we can separate the radicals. We have square root of 25 times square root of 2. So from this, we can have an answer. The square root of 25 will be equal to 5, so it can be simplified as 5. Then the square root of 2 will just be square root of 2. So the answer for square root of 50, the simplified form of it will be equal to 5 square root of 2. Gets po? Okay. Yan. Now, we have square root of 32. Yes, you might be thinking about these two factors. I may compare it, I may have square root of 4. Let's consider 4. 4 times 8. That's 32. Or you may also consider this one, 16. Because 16 can also be a factor of 32. 16 times 2. So from this one, you will choose ano yung mas better na piliing factors, 4 times 8 or 16 times 2. So in simplifying radicals, you will always choose the largest or the larger factor that is a perfect square. So dapat yung mas mataas yung perfect square. Hindi 4. Mas mataas is 16. So ang pipiliin nating factor instead of 4 times 8 will be yan, hindi 'to. Mas madali 'to i-factor or mas madali siya i-simplify kasi hindi ka na uulit ng step. Here, you will just separate the radicals. We have square root of 16 times square root of 2. Then you'll be having an answer that is the square root of 16 is equal to 4 square root of 2. Yan. So as you notice, 2 na yan. You will not simplify it anymore because there's no factor that is a perfect square except 1. So that's how you simplify radicals. So right now, we'll continue with simplifying radicals, but this time with this form. So example, this one, the first one. Bakit ganito yung form? Kasi ganito yung mangyayari mamaya sa solving quadratic equation using quadratic formula. Yung magiging answers natin most of the time, ganito yung itsura. So we will learn how to simplify these kinds of radicals. So first step, we have to simplify the one inside the radical sign. That's 108. So just like what we did here on this part, we'll try to get the simplified form of square root of 108 by getting a factor of 108 that is a perfect square. So I know that you might be thinking about 4 times 27. 4 times 27, yes, that's equal to 108. But I think it's better if we have a perfect square that is equal to 36. And if I multiply it to 3, the answer is 108 as well. Diba? Pili tayo nung mas malaki yung perfect square dun sa factor. Or dun sa factor. So we have 36 times 3. Ganun, para isang step lang yung simplifying radicals natin. Then divide all of them by 18. So we simplify this one. We get the square root of 36, so we will be having 9 plus minus 6 square root of 3 divided by 18. So as you notice, 9 and 6 and 18 can still be simplified from this form. But we cannot divide them directly because the one at the top, this one, is a binomial. This one is only a monomial. So what do is we try to factor out a common number. So we factor out a number from 9 and 6. So I think we can divide 3 from 9 and 6. So from that, we can have we can factor out 3. So 9 divided by 3 will be equal to 3. And 6 divided by 3, so plus minus 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then copy square root of 3. So nagets ba? So, nag-factor out ako. So, nag-divide ako ng common number. Just to factor out that common number, ilalabas ko kasi siya. Kaya natin siya dinivide. Then, divided by 18. So, from that, we can simplify or we can divide 3 and 18 by 3. So, pwede natin sila i-divide ng 3 for both sides. Yan. Para makuha natin yung lowest term. And 3 will now become 1. because 3 divided by 3 is equal to 1. 18 will now become 6. Yan. So, ganun lang ulit. Pinapakita ko lang kung paano nyo ginagawa yung lowest term dati. So, from that, our final answer will now be 1. So, susulat ko pa ba yung 1? Hindi na. Parang ang dating kasi niyan, 1. So, dito natin lagay 1 times 3 plus minus 2 square root of 3 all over. So, divide na natin yung 18 sa 3. So, this will become 6. So, our final answer will now be, hindi ko nalalagay yung 1 kasi 1 times that entire thing is just 3 plus minus 2 square root of 3 over 6. Ayan na yan. So, that is the simplified form of 9 plus minus the square root of 108 all over 18. Okay, let's take another example. So, yeah, negative 15 plus minus the square root of 45 all over 3. So, how do we simplify this one? Ganito lang. So, ganun ulit. Ganun ulit. So, unang step, ang gagawin natin is we get a factor of 45 or factors of 45. Pero dapat yung isa is perfect square. So, ano kaya yung pwedeng factors ni 45 na isa dito ay perfect square? So, 4, hindi pwede. 9, pwede. So, I think wala naman na mas mataas na perfect square factor. 9 times 5 is 45. Then, don't forget to copy all over 3. So, this will be equal to, so just to simplify, the same as what we did here, on simplifying radicals, we just get the square root of the perfect square, which is 9. Yan, square root ni 9 ay magiging 3, square root of 5, all over 3. So, from that, ang magandang way para i-simplify ito is, first, we can remove the negative sign by dividing this by negative number, and both of this will be divided as well. So, just to factor out a certain number, we can divide both of them dun sa ifa-factor out natin. So, divide natin sila parehas kay negative 3. So, from that, we can factor out negative 3. Yan, labas natin si negative 3. Yan, negative 3, then factor out, then we divide. Negative 15 divided by negative 3, that's positive already, and that's positive 5. Then, plus minus, ito, kahit i-divide mo sa negative 3, yung positive magiging negative, yung negative magiging positive. Pero ganun pa rin yung sign, positive, negative, 'di ba? So, okay lang 'yan. Nagbago yung sign niyan, pero nagkabaligtad lang. Ang nangyari lang is negative, positive. Ganun lang din, which is also the same as positive, negative. So, yun. So, 3 divided by 3 will be equal to 1. So, you have 1 square root of, oops, that's not 3, that's 5. All over 3. So, as you notice, we'll be having here common number wherein we can simplify. We can simplify 3 and 3. We can divide both of them by a common number, which is 3, to get the lowest term. So, we'll be having an answer now will be equal to, yan, so magiging negative 1 na lang siya. 5 plus minus square root of 5. Pwede na yan, di ba? Tanggalin na natin yung 1 kasi it's just be equal to 1. Then this one will be over 1. Yan. Just to simplify, our final answer should now be equal to, yan, tanggalin na natin yung 1 sa ilalim. Then, i-distribute na rin natin yung negative 1 since para mas maganda tignan. So, negative 5 plus minus the square root of 5. And that's how we simplify this form of radicals. Last, we have 3 plus minus the square root of 9 all over 12. So, wala na tayong space. Paano kaya yan? The reason is, as you notice, there is a negative inside the radical sign. Di ba kung naaalala nyo from the first solving of quadratic equation, yung una natin pinag-aralan, which is extracting square root, we cannot have a negative sign inside the square root because you cannot think of a number that if you get that square root, the answer is negative. If you get that square, the answer is a negative number. So, ang sagot dito is not real number. Yan. Kasi wala ka namang square root ni -9. It's not a perfect it's a perfect square. 9 is a perfect square, pero bawal yung negative, 'di ba, kapag sa square root. So our answer from that one is not real number. I hope you understand how to recall or how to simplify these kinds of radicals. Magagamit natin siya mamaya sa quadratic or solving quadratic equation. Okay, let's proceed. So as you can see, we have values of a, b, and c from the standard form of quadratic equation. So those are just constant values or numbers. So we'll use it from the quadratic formula. But this quadratic formula, just so you know that it is derived from completing the square. So yung video or part ng video na pinanood nyo dun sa pinakaumpisa kung saan may black background ako at may parang nagsasolve sa likod, that person in Khan Academy is doing the derivation of the quadratic formula using the completing the square. So we'll not discuss that derivation for today. We'll just be focusing on how to use quadratic formula in solving quadratic equation. So, basta alam nyo lang na dun siya na-derive. If you want to watch that video, you can search it on the YouTube. So, this is the quadratic formula. It's x is equal to negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Note, a should not be equal to 0. So, ganun din yung rule dito katulad nung dito sa ating standard form. A should not be equal to 0. And just to give you a preview or the things that I'm doing when this one is on the actual class, I usually ask my student to memorize this formula because this formula is very important. So sabi ko nga sa kanila, uh, try nyo kabisaduhin, x is equal to negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Then sabihin nyo sa jeep, bakit po ilan? Tapos sabihin nyo yung formula, di ba? So babatayin kayo ng sukli ng driver. Kasi di ba? Mukha kayong matalino if you recite this one in a very fast way. X is equal to negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Ah, 'di ba? So if you want to memorize, it's very important or very useful in our lesson for today. So let's proceed. So let's have example number 1. So we're given with 2x squared plus 3x minus 27 is equal to 0. So unang pwede mong isipin, tingnan kaya natin kung pwede factoring. Pangalawa naman is, tingnan kaya natin baka pwede siya ng completing the square. But for today, we'll not use that one. So we'll use the quadratic formula. So the first step in using quadratic formula and solving quadratic equation is to check if this is on the standard form. So as you look at this equation, mukha naman. This one is ax squared plus bx plus c. Nasa standard form man siya ng quadratic equation natin. So next step na tayo. Next step is to identify the values of a, b, and c. And to identify them, all you need to do is to look at the constant numbers beside each of the given term. So ganito, 2, 3, and -7. So ayan, o 'di ba parang automatic na siya. So pwede mo siyang isulat ng ganyan and then you can just bring down the constant value as a, b, and c. And don't forget that if it is minus, it is considered as negative. So for example, we have negative or -27. The value of that constant will be -27. So huwag mo kakalimutan yan. Sobrang importante niyan pagdating sa quadratic formula. We have to consider the signs. Next. So here, we already have the quadratic formula. So all we need to do is to substitute. Papalitan lang natin yung mga letters ng mga numbers kung saan naka-assign yung mga values nila. So, for example, b is equal to 3. So, ang ipapalit natin kay b is 3. Dito 3 din. Then, a will be equal to 2. So, ilalagay natin dito yung 2. Then, c will be equal to, c will be equal to -27. So, ilalagay natin dito -27. Then, 2 times a. So, ipapalit natin dito kay a is 2. So, gaano kabilis yan? Ganyan lang kabilis, di ba? Napalitan na sila. So, from that, you already have this value. So, ang next step natin is to simplify, syempre, kung ano yung dun nasa loob. So, yan, di ba? Automatic. So, we have this -3 plus minus square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times -27 all over 2 times 2. Yan. So, just to simplify, ang mga pwede natin gawin dito is, we can square this one already. That's 3 times 3. We can make it equal to 9. So, yan. Pwede na natin itong gawing equal to 9. Ito natin lagay. Equal to 9 na yan. Then, we can also multiply this one. This one can be equal to 4 already. And ito, pwede na rin natin i-simplify. So, tingnan natin kung gagawin siya dito. And take note, this one is negative kasi negative b. Although mukhang positive yan, sabi dito negative b kasi. Ayan. So, ayun na, multiply na. This one becomes 9 and this one becomes 54. It's negative 54. Bakit negative 54? Kasi negative 27 tsaka positive 2. So, negative 54 siya. So, ayun. Tama? Yan. So, negative 3, then this one becomes 4. Yan, tama naman. So, na-simplify lang natin siya. And after that, we can still further simplify the one inside. As you notice, we can have here negative 4 times negative 54, and that will be equal to a positive number. So, we can make this one 9 plus 216. Ayan o. Kasi ito, negative 4 times negative 54, positive 216. Kaya siya magiging plus 216. So, I hope naintindihan nyo from that. So, from that one, we can still further simplify this equation into negative 3 plus minus square root of 225. So, saan galing yan? Dito yan galing sa 9 plus 216. So, from that, we can get the square root of 225. Ano nga ulit yun? Pwede kayo kumuha ng calcio kung nakalimutan nyo na. O kaya, tignan nyo sa notebook nyo yung listahan nyo ng perfect square kung meron kayo. So, ang square root ni 225, the number that if you square, the answer is 225. That will be 15. So, square root of 2, lagay natin dito, square root of 225 is equal to 15. So, from that, we'll be having an equation that is negative 3 plus minus 15 all over 4. So, na-simplify na natin yung nandun sa loob ng square root. So, ito na yung magiging sagot natin. But as you remember, a quadratic equation will have two answers. One is plus, one is minus from this given equation. So, ang gagawin natin, paghihiwalayin natin siya. Yan. So, one is having negative 3 plus yung plus naman. Plus 15 all over 4. And yung isa naman is negative 3 minus 15 all over 4. So, parehas lang din sila. Ang pagkakaiba lang, ito ay plus, ito ay minus. So, unahin natin i-solve itong equation na to. So, if you try to simplify, negative 3 plus 15, that will be, may utang kang 3, nagbayad ka ng 15 pesos, may sukli ka pang 12 pesos. So, we have 12 over 4. I think we can divide 12 over 4. Yan. So, we can get the lowest term by dividing both of them by 4. So, the answer will now be equal to 3. Kasi magiging ano yan, 3 over 1 or will be equal to 3. Next, negative 3 minus 15. So, yan, negative 3 minus 15. We have, may utang kang 3, ng utang ka ulit ng 15. Magkano na lahat ng utang mo? Eh, di 18 pesos. So, negative yun. So, we can have negative 18 over 4. So, from that, we can simplify by getting the lowest term. We can divide both of them by a common number, which is 2, to get the lowest term. So, negative 18 divided by 2 and 4 divided by 2. Our final answer is supposedly negative 9 over 2. So, that will be the simplified form. And from this one, napakadali, our solution will now be equal to 3 and negative 9 over 2. So, negative dapat yan. Negative 9 over 2. Okay, let's proceed to another example. So, ganun lang ulit yung step. First step, you have to be sure that this given equation is in standard form. So, alam ko naman na marunong ka na maggawa ng standard form for this equation. So, from that one, para ang gagawin mo lang is ililipat mo lang dito. Ayun, kunyari, nandito yung 2x squared. Dapat nandito siya sa left side ng equation. So, ililipat lang natin siya dito sa left side. So, if it is positive 2x, ang mangyayari dyan is ililipat lang natin siya. So, magiging negative 2x squared plus yan kasi positive si 8x. Magiging 0 na to. Tama? Yan. So, from that, ang magiging itsura niya na will now be negative 2x squared plus 8x plus 7 is equal to 0. So, ganun lang palagi. You have to make this on the standard form kasi nga we will identify the a, b, and c values of this uh, quadratic equation. So, first step, you identify the values of a, b, and c. So, ayan. Ito na yung a, ito na yung b, ito na yung c. Then, lagay natin siya dyan. So, maganda, may listahan na kayo. Mapapababa nyo rin na parang ganyan. So, we have a is equal to negative 2 kasi negative nga naman siya. Then, positive 8 kasi plus 2. Then, positive 7 kasi plus din yun. So, that's the value of a, b, and c. From that as well, we will use once again the quadratic formula. Negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So, ang sa-substitute natin, itong 8 lalagay natin dito. And take note negative yan. So, kung positive tong 8, magiging negative 8 siya. Next, b squared. So, papalit na din ulit ito. Gagawin natin 8 to. Then, yung a, gagawin natin negative 2. Sasama natin yung negative sign. C will be equal to 7. So, papalitan natin to ng 7. A na naman sa baba. So, papalitan natin to ng negative 2. So, gaano kabilis yun? Isang click. O, ayan na sila lahat. So, ayan kung nakita nyo, negative 8 na siya. Kasi positive dito. Ito, negative 2 pa rin naman siya kasi a is equal to negative 2. So, ganun lang. Then, after that, we'll use this given expression na ganyan yung itsura. We'll just need to simplify. So, ano-ano ulit yung mga pwede natin gawin? Yung 8, pwede na natin itong gawing 8 times 8, which is 64. Then, etong 2 times negative 2, pwede na natin itong gawing 2 times negative 2, negative 4. Then, ito, pwede na natin sila i-multiply. We can make it negative 14. That's negative 2 times 7. Negative siya kasi negative times positive. So, from that, we'll be having this equation already. So, ayan, kung napansin nyo, ito naging negative 8 pa rin. Ito naging 64. Ito ay naging negative 14 at ito ay naging negative 4. So, tama yung mga ginawa nating simplifying. But once again, we can multiply negative 4 times negative 14 and we will be having this equation, di ba? Kasi kapag multiply mo yan, magiging positive 56. Kasi negative 4 times negative 14, positive 56. So, pwede na tayo magkaroon ng equation na ganito. 64 plus 56. And from that, we can simplify this 64 plus 56 into 120. Kaya siya naging 120. Gets po? Yan. But, as you notice, I think yung 120 example natin to kanina, although 120 is not a perfect square, pwede natin kuhain yung simplified form of square root of 120 by getting the factors of 120, which is 4 times 30. And 4 will be our perfect square. So, we get the square root of 4, that will be 2. Then, square root of 30, wala. So, magiging 2 square root of 30 lang siya. So, from that, copy everything. The same pa rin. Pero, ang magbabago lang is, ito. Mapapalitan siya ng 2 square root of 30. So, from here, makikita natin na pwede nating i-divide with a common number itong si 8 tsaka si negative 8 tsaka si 2. So, pwede natin silang gawing we can divide both of them. So, para katulad ng ginawa natin kanina, tanggalin na natin yung negative kay negative 8. So, we divide with negative 2. So, ganun din kay 2. We divide it by negative 2. So, from that, we can factor out negative 2 and the resulting will be this one. So, ayan. Bakit siya naging negative 2 sa labas? Kasi yun yung common number na dinivide natin just to simplify it later. So, negative 8 divided by negative 2, kaya siya naging positive 4. Then, 2 divided by negative 2 will be equal to, yan, positive and negative to. Kaya nga, sabi ko sa inyo kanina, ito, kahit walang magbabago sa sign nito kasi magiging negative positive, will still be the same as positive negative. So, magiging 1 lang yan. So, magkakaroon dapat ng 1 dito. And, as you notice, negative 2 here and negative 4 will have a common factor or a common number. We can divide both of them by negative 2. Yan, para matanggal natin yung negative sign. So, divide both of them by negative 2. Yan, so ang mangyayari, maka-cancel silang dalawa. And negative 2 will become positive 1. And negative 4 will become positive 2. And that will give us a resulting value that is 4 plus minus square root of 30 all over 2. And that will be our solution. Yan. So, kung mapapansin nyo, isa lang yan. Pero dalawa yan. One is plus, one is minus. Don't forget that you will always have at most two values or two solutions for a quadratic equation. Gets po? Okay, let's consider this last example. Ayan, tignan nyo. Hindi na naman siya naka-standard form. So, anong gagawin natin? Lipat-lipat lang din. So, if this is positive 5x, ang gagawin natin, gagawin lang siyang negative. Lipat natin siya. And I think mas maganda kung lalagay na natin siya sa gitna. Magiging minus 5x. So, parang itsura is 3x squared minus 5x plus 11. Kasi nga, di ba, yung may variable na x, dun palagi nasa gitna ng quadratic equation natin. So, from that, ang magiging itsura niya na will now be like this one. So 3x squared minus 5x plus 11 is equal to 0. So standard form na siya, ax squared minus bx plus 11 is equal to 0. Yan. So lagi niyo siyang gagawin ganito, ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Dapat ganyan, just for us to identify the values of a, b, and c. Now, ayan na yung magiging values natin. Ang galing, oh. Ibababa lang natin. So, ayun sila. So, don't forget, once again, if the value is negative, ibababa rin natin yung minus or negative sign na yun. So, b is equal to negative 5. Huwag kakalimutan yun kasi sobrang importante ng sign pagdating sa quadratic formula. So, isama nyo pati yung negative values nila kahit na nakalagay siya as operation. So once again, we'll use this quadratic formula. So we have negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we just need to substitute. Yung b, papalit natin dyan is negative 5. Dito, negative 5 ulit. A will be equal to 3. And c will be equal to 11. Then a once again will be equal to 3. So from that, click. Ayun na sila lahat. So, ito naging negative 5. So, wag mong kakalimutan na kung may negative sa formula, isulat mo na agad yung negative. Kasi pwede magkaroon ng ganyan. Negative of negative 5. So, mamaya malalaman natin kung paano siya i-simplify. Pero wag mong gagawin na negative 5 agad yan. Mali yun. So, kailangan kapag negative yung b mo, susulat mo yung dalawang negative sign sa labas. Isusulat mo pa rin yung negative sign sa labas kasi nasa formula yon. Yan, you will just copy everything. So, katulad nung ginagawa ko, pwede mo na lang basta magsulat ka ng nakablanko na sila. Then, sulat mo yung nakablanko na yung mga letters and all you need to do is to input the values. So, magandang strategy yon. So, from that, we'll take this one as the formula or the given values. So, unang pwede natin i-simplify is ito. Pwede natin yang gawing negative times negative para maging simple na siya. Positive 5 na siya kasi negative of a negative number is positive. Then this one, we can make this one as negative 5 squared. This one will become 25. And ito, pwede na natin to i-multiply. This one will be equal to 33. Yan. And ito, multiply ulit natin, magiging 6. So, yun yung mga unang step na pwede nating i-simplify sa una. So, from that, we'll have this equation or this form of our formula. So, it's already positive 5, 25 na to, then 33 na to, then ito ay 6. From there, ang susunod na ginagawa natin is we try to multiply this one. So, 4 times 33, that will give us And that will give us 132. And bakit siya minus or negative? Kasi negative 4 yan eh. Negative 4 times positive 33, negative pa rin yung sagot. So it becomes negative 132. So what we can do next is you can just subtract 25 minus 132 and that will give us negative 107. So from that, you will see that there will be this form. By the way, you just need to copy everything. Ang isi-simplify lang natin is yung mga pwedeng i-simplify sa loob ng radical sign. So just copy 5 and 6 on the denominator. If you observe, you will be having negative 107. And once again, in solving quadratic equation, a negative number inside a radical sign is a no-no because that will give us unreal or not real number. So if that will be the case, kapag nagkaroon ka ng negative sa loob nito, ang magiging sagot na natin will be automatically there are no real solution. Okay, I think you're ready now to answer some examples or some exercises. So you try. So I have here three given quadratic equations. So solve for the real roots of each equation using quadratic formula. So by the way, kapag nagkaroon ka ng negative sa loob ng radical, you will automatically answer there are no real solution. So 5 seconds to pause this video and answer the following. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I hope na-pause mo na dahil ito na yung mga magiging sagot nila. Okay, for letter A, x squared minus 2x minus 19. Yan, ito yung magiging sagot nila. Next. So the answer for letter B will be, so I think kailangan mo siya i-simplify. So kung di mo na simplify, okay lang yan. Basta take note, sa susunod kailangan nakasimplify na siya. Okay, for the next number, this will be letter C. So the answer will be, there are no real roots. So bakit siya no real roots? Kasi magkakaroon ka ng negative 23 sa loob ng radical sign. So kaya siya naging no real roots. I hope you understand the lesson for today. Until next time, bye!